Good evening. It is indeed my honor to welcome you tonight to the Banneker-Douglass Museum for the second session of the Maryland Commission on African American History and Culture's third annual symposium. Founded at a time of civil unrest following the assassination of Reverend Dr. Martin Luther King Jr., and fueled by decades of repressed anger and resentment over political, social, and economic injustices, the Commission remains committed to discovering, documenting, preserving, collecting, and promoting Maryland's Black history and culture through such programs as this symposium. This year's theme, The Spirit of the Black Family, Reclaim, Rejoice, Renew, and Remember, speaks to all that is important to the Black family. After 19 months of COVID holding us in its grips, after watching families suffer the loss of loved ones, now with the approval of vaccines, the wearing of PPE, and observing social distancing practices, we get to come together to rejoice and remember that somehow we made it. Though we are not quite out of the woods yet, somehow we made it this far. I am reminded of those enslaved who endured dehumanizing conditions, yet found the strength to sing songs that we now call spirituals. These songs, made up of lyrics inspired by the Christian Bible, offered hope and strength to a people when life continually threw out its worst. These songs tapped into a faith that carried them through difficulty and pain and encouraged them to believe beyond their circumstances and press on in spite of all they faced. This evening, you will hear some of those songs. No matter your faith tradition, I encourage you to hear in the lyrics the hope of a people for you to press on in spite of that which you face. As the libations are poured and the drums are played, remember the lives of those who were reflected in that awfully large number that kept rising each day on our television screens as the coronavirus continued to spread. Remind yourself that you are the legacy of a people who did not quit and who did not give in, not to racism, not to injustices, and not to hardship. Senator Verda Freeman Welcome believed that connecting people to our history and culture was a tool to preserve our stories and achievements. Press on, because your family needs you. They need you to share your stories of triumph and victory over whatever it is you face, so that they too will know the strength of the Black family. I wish I could be with you this afternoon, but I am with my family, eagerly awaiting the arrival of my first grandchild, who I will share the stories of his ancestors who forged a trail and paved the way so that he could aspire and achieve and be anything he desires to be. Have fun, enjoy the program, and as always, thank you for supporting the Maryland Commission on African American History and Culture.
May we pray. God of our weary years, God of our silent tears, thou who has brought us thus far along the way, we acknowledge you in the greatness of your power and your grace on this afternoon. For where would we be if it had not been for your strengthening and guiding us? We, as a people, would have perished. Yet, here we are today, still standing, still pressing on. Be with us on this evening as we reflect upon the past, especially these past 19 months. Pull back the veil that causes us to grieve and reveal to us your everlasting presence and the sufficiency of your power to guide us through anything that we face. Show us that we have nothing to be anxious about. You are still in control and still able to see us through a worldwide pandemic, through racial injustices, and even through the individual battles which we face from day to day. For in opening our eyes, we will truly be able to rejoice. Rejoice in your goodness. Rejoice in your mercy. Rejoice in the fact that we survived and we are still here, still pressing on. A powerful example that you set in your word, that weeping may endure for a night, but joy indeed comes in the morning. In the matchless name of Jesus the Christ, we pray. Amen.
Hi, I'm Congressman Kwesi Mfume, and I'm happy to share with you this evening and very proud to serve as a commissioner on the Maryland Commission on African American History and Culture. All of us who serve as commissioners do so out of a deep belief that we must find a way to preserve our history. I can remember when this important organization helped to save Black history in Maryland through the opening of the Banneker-Douglass Museum and other various initiatives that contributed so much to the preservation of that history. The capital funding and resources they provide to state heritage sites throughout Maryland is significant. The founder of the commission was the Honorable Verda Welcome, the first African-American woman state senator in Maryland and only the second in the nation. Verda was a civil rights activist and a senator who would survive an assassination attempt by a deranged individual seeking to stop Black progress. She was also my friend and my mentor. Her commitment to authentic preservation of our history would later inspire my work as a civil rights activist, an NAACP leader, and a member of the United States Congress. I serve on the commission because I stand, like we all do, on her shoulders. Let us continue to work together to preserve these important milestones in Maryland's civil rights history and amplify the many community voices that support the work of the Commission and the Banneker-Douglass Museum for today and most of all for future generations to come. I salute Commission Chair Dr. Tamara Wilson, my fellow commissioners, and I thank all of you for your commitment and your contributions. We cannot and will not be able to do this vital work without you. And now it is also my honor to present to you Executive Director Chanel Compton.
African American History and Culture's Rejoice and Remember celebration and ceremony held at your state museum on African American History and Culture, the Banneker-Douglass Museum. We would like to begin by acknowledging that the land on which we gather is a traditional territory stolen from the Piscataway people. As we work towards truth and reconciliation to create spaces for healing and connection, let us first acknowledge the racial terror of colonialism and attempted erasure of indigenous people. As we live, work, worship, and tour in historic Annapolis, let us also commit to learning and honoring the sacrifices, resistance, history, and culture of the first state-recognized tribes in Maryland, the Piscataway Conoy tribe and the Piscataway Indian Nation. The Maryland Commission on African American History and Culture joins Piscataway Nation in mourning the loss of Chief William Billy Redwing Tyack, who joined the ancestors on September 6, 2021. A human rights activist, Chief Billy Tyack worked tirelessly to preserve the rights, dignity, and legacy of the Piscataway Nation. 2020. Since 2020, during a global pandemic and new resurgence of the Black Lives Matter movement, the Banneker-Douglass Museum launched a series of educational virtual programs. Since March 2020, the Banneker-Douglass Museum has presented online educational programs that has engaged over 50,000 people through our youth conference, anti-racism trainings, symposiums, Governor's Black History Award celebration, public art, and our annual symposium. Though we are a state agency, it's through contributions that makes possible the hiring of our much-needed staff, our youth and community programs and exhibitions, and so much more. You can support the work of the Banneker-Douglass Museum and the Maryland Commission on African American History and Culture by giving today. All you need to do is visit us online at bdmuseum.maryland.gov/donate. Thank you to our grantors and our funders, the City of Annapolis, the Banneker-Douglass Museum Foundation, the Maryland Commission on African American History and Culture, the Governor's Coordinating Office, and the Governor's Office of Community Initiative, as well as the Anti-Racism Coalition for making this event possible. I recognize our commissioners that are here today. Dr. Edwin T. Johnson, Commissioner Cheryl McLeod, Commissioner Janice Green. Thank you all for putting together such a successful symposium. And to the staff of the Banneker-Douglass Museum, Shalisa Howard, our Curator of Collections, Sabria Hassan, our Programs Director, LaRon Herbert, Administrative Manager and Special Assistant to the Commission, and Mr. Robert James, Director of Marketing and Communication. Thank you for your contribution to this year's program. And to all of you that are joining us here tonight, enjoy the rest of the program.
For each child that's born, a morning star rises and sings to the universe who we are. For each child that's born, a morning star rises and sings to the universe who we are. We are our grandmother's prayers.
In the Black tradition,
we are our
in the African
grandfather's dreamings. We
before we proceed
are
with any
the
event,
breath of the ancestors.
any celebration,
we are
we have to
the
take time
Spirit of God.
to pay homage,
For each child
to think
that's born,
and
a
remember
morning
those that
star
allow us to be in this
rises
space right
and
now.
sings to the universe who
We are in a place of history,
we are. For each
a
child
place
that's
dedicated
born,
to capturing
a morning
the stories of our
star
people.
rises and sings to
That
the
story can be
universe
good, bad, and ugly. We all know that. But it's a story worthy of being chronicled. It's a story worthy of being preserved. It's a story worthy of being told. And in telling that story, we honor those who allowed us to be in this space. So the way we do that, we have this plant. Symbolizes this giant rock going thousands of miles through the vastness of the universe.
Sons
but
of
has all
great
the elements
vision, we're
to
sisters
sustain
of
life,
mercy, brothers
such as water.
of love.
Our bodies are mostly made
life,
of water. It's a critical element
builders
to our
of
existence.
nations, we're seekers
And when we pour
of truth,
this critical element
keepers
onto the
of
surface,
faith,
we give
makers
acknowledgement. We can
of
say amen.
peace,
We can say
wisdom
ashe.
of
We can say yea bo.
ages,
We can say let it be so.
are
All right.
our grandmother's prayer.
So we first give homage to the Creator. And the Creator goes by many names.
Grandfather's dream.
Some, when they call the Creator, they say God. Some say
The
Allah.
breath of
Some say
the
Jehovah.
ancestors.
Some say Jesus Christ.
are
Some say
the
Jah.
Spirit
Some say
of
Olodumare.
God. For each child that's
The
born,
Creator acknowledges all of
a
those
morning
names.
star rises
The scripture
and
says
sings
very
to the
clearly,
universe
which I appreciate,
who we are.
God is love.
For each child that's born, a
So to the Spirit of
morning
love,
star rises
to the
and
Creator,
sings
we
to
say
the
Ashe,
universe.
we say amen, we say let it be so.
We are
To our ancestors,
grandmother's prayers.
I look around this space and I see these stories of those
Our grandfather's
survived.
dreamings. We
who survived the transatlantic slave trade,
the breath of
the African
the
diaspora.
ancestors.
That's the reason you find us all over the world.
are the Spirit of
Despite the
God.
horrors of being snatched from our
Each
homeland,
child that's born, a morning
Despite
star
losing
rises
our
and
language,
sings to the universe.
our practices, our
Who
customs,
we
our
are.
traditions,
For each
our
child
names.
that's born, a morning
survived.
star rises and
we survived all the
sings
horrors
to the universe.
that the Ma'afa had for us.
Who we are.
And because of that strength, because of that perseverance,
Our
we are here.
grandmother's prayers.
and because we're here, we have to
are
fight.
Our grandfather's
So to our ancestors, we say Ashe,
dreamings.
we say amen, we say let it be so.
The breath of
To our
the
children,
ancestors, we
lest we
are
forget we were
the
children once.
Spirit of God, we
We
are
didn't just get to this
mothers
point, right?
of courage, fathers
We know
of
how important it
time,
was to have those
daughters
people in
of
our lives
dust,
to help shape
sons
us.
of great vision.
I wouldn't be here without my
sisters
mother.
of mercy,
I wouldn't be here without my father.
brothers
I wouldn't be
of
here without
love,
Mama Janice.
lovers of
A lot of
life,
love was poured into this vessel.
wisdom of age,
And that's why you see who you see today.
Of peace,
Let's do the same for our
of
kids.
faith, lovers
same for kids,
of life, wisdom
So to the children,
of ages,
to those whom we leave this earth,
are
may we leave
our
it better than when we found it.
grandmother's prayers.
Ashe? Amen. Let
We
it be so.
are our
So at this time, I
grandfather's
invite you to call out those heroes and
dreamings.
sheroes. We
are
are in the Banneker-Douglass
breath
Museum. There's two of them right
the
there. Benjamin Banneker and Frederick Douglass.
are
Let's let them
the
know that we
Spirit
still
of
learn
God.
from them.
For
We are
each
still
child
guided
that's
by their
born,
teachings. We're still
a
guided by their
morning
actions, their
star
principles,
rises
the
and
virtues that they exuded,
sings
not
to
just
the
for us, but
universe
for the whole world.
who we
So at this time, I invite you to call
each
out their
child
names.
that's born,
Say their
a
names.
morning
Martin Luther
star
King Jr.,
rises
Ashe.
and
Fannie Lou Hamer,
sings
Ashe.
to the universe
Ella Baker, Ashe.
who we are.
Fred Hampton,
For
Ashe.
each child
Huey
that's
Newton,
born,
Ashe.
a morning
Uh-huh,
star
Ashe.
rises
Kwame
and
Nkrumah, Ashe.
sings to the
Fela Kuti,
universe
Ashe.
who
Ashe.
we are.
All right.
For each child that's
Now,
born,
at this time,
a morning star
invite you to think about
rises
those people
and
in your family,
sings to the
your
universe
friends,
who
your loved
we
ones,
are.
your acquaintances, and your associates.
We
Those
are
who left an
our
imprint on your
grandmother's
heart
prayers.
and in your life.
We are
Those who may not be
our
with us in the physical form
grandfather's
anymore,
dreamings.
but we need them now
are
more than ever.
the breath of the ancestors.
I invite you to call out their
We
names.
are the
David
Spirit
Faulkner,
of God.
Ashe.
For
Mary Lee
each
Pierce,
child that's
Ashe.
born,
Charles
a
Lee,
morning
Ashe.
star rises
Jesse Williams,
and
Ashe.
sings to the
Elmer P.
universe
Martin, Ashe.
who
Mary
we
Carter Smith,
are.
Ashe.
For each child
Brother
that's
Blue, Ashe.
born, a morning
Jacobs Brown,
star
Ashe.
rises and sings to the universe who
To those names that we mentioned,
are.
to those names that we didn't mention but were on
are
our hearts
Our
and on our minds,
grandmother's prayers.
I thank you for this libation.
We are
It was
our
an opportunity for us
grandfather's
to think of them,
dreamings.
to
We
say we miss them,
are
So
the
please say
breath of the
say we love 'em,
ancestors.
because we
We
still do.
are the
say we need them,
Spirit of
because we
God.
always will.
We are mothers
So to
of
our
courage,
ancestors, to our
fathers
children,
of
to the
time,
Creator,
daughters
heroes and
of
sheroes,
dust,
and And to those
Sons
who loved us,
of great vision,
say,
we're sisters
say amen.
of mercy,
say, let it be so.
brothers of love, lovers of life, wisdom of ages, we're seekers of truth, keepers of faith, makers of peace, wisdom of ages, we are our grandfather's prayers. We are our grandmother's dreamings. We are the breath of the ancestors. We are the Spirit of God. We are one.
Good afternoon. My name is Commissioner Janice Curtis Green, and I am here today at the Sankofa Children's Museum of African Culture. This beautiful museum was the idea of its proprietor and owner, Miss Esther Armstrong, whom I affectionately call Queen Esther. Can you tell us today, Queen Esther, what was the idea or the inspiration of starting this beautiful museum?
Well, Janice, as you know, I've had a cultural shop in Baltimore for over 20 years. And at the point where I thought, okay, I've done enough here, I decided that there was one more thing that I needed to do. Having talked to so many people over the years, I realized that there was something missing because apparently African history and cultures are not taught in schools. And so you could tell by the questions people asked that there was some lack of knowledge. And I decided, how about we start with the children?
Yes.
Because the adults can find information when they want it, but the children do not. And we wanted to sow seeds while they were still young.
That's wonderful, sowing seeds to grow. And where did you get all of these wonderful artifacts? Did you yourself bring them here from Ghana?
No, I didn't. As soon as we started incorporating African art into our offerings at the shop, people, dealers, started contacting us and bringing us things. So we would, just about every week, we would have 2-3 vendors stop by, this was when we were on Charles Street, and show us what they had, and we bought what we could afford and what we liked. So it's been 10, 15 years of collecting. So when we started the museum, at least we had a base to start with. We already owned a lot of what we call today African art.
Well, make sure that you stop by and definitely bring your children to the Sankofa Children's Museum of African Culture at 4330 Pimlico Road in Baltimore City. Look up Queen Esther and make sure, ladies, you bring your purses because there is a gift shop. Thank you so much. And thank you, Queen Esther, for always supporting the work of the Maryland Commission on African American History and Culture.
You're very welcome. We support you. Yes.
Good afternoon. I am Commissioner Janice Curtis Green, and it is my extreme honor to introduce Rachel Lene Byers. She is a professionally trained dancer, choreographer, teacher, and worship leader. She is a magna cum laude graduate from the University of the Arts in Philadelphia, Pennsylvania, with a bachelor's degree of fine arts in dance and a minor in business. Rachel has been dancing since the age of 4 at Baltimore Dance Tech and the Reverence Anointed Praise Dance Ensemble, in addition to summer training with Baltimore County Youth Ballet, Ballet X, Atlanta Dance Connection, and the Dance Theater of Harlem. She has choreographed for George Washington Carver Center for Arts and Technology and the Friends School in Baltimore. Rachel has danced with the Dissidents Dance Theater Ambassadors Project, College Park, Sound Expressed in Capitol Heights, Infinite Grace, and New All Saints Liturgical Dance Ministries. For the past 5 years, Rachel has been teaching students of all ages at the Maryland Academy of Dance in Owings Mills, and is currently the new dance instructor for the Friends School in Baltimore. Today, Rachel will dance for the Maryland Commission on African American History and Culture, the spirit of the Black family. Renew, rejoice, reclaim, remember. Rachel Lene Byers.
It is my honor to introduce tenor John Wesley Wright. Dr. Wright is known for his soulful interpretations of music from Bach to Broadway. He holds degrees from Maryville College and the University of Cincinnati College Conservatory of Music. Dr. Wright has performed as a soloist and in professional ensembles throughout the United States, Europe, and Japan. A member of the acclaimed American Spiritual Ensemble, Dr. Wright, has garnered top prizes from the National Federation of Music Clubs, the Metropolitan Opera National Council, and is the winner of the American Traditions Competition 2000. He is a native of Rome, Georgia. That's Rome, Georgia. And coordinates the voice and opera programs at Salisbury University on the Eastern Shore of Maryland. Accompanying Dr. Wright is Canadian-born classical guitarist Danielle Cumming. Dr. Cumming is a celebrated performer, teacher, and recording artist. She holds a doctorate from McGill University and is the artistic director of the Marlowe Guitar International Concert Series in Washington, D.C. After a year of study in Spain, Danielle released her first solo world music-influenced CD, Postcards, a recording of 20th century internationally acclaimed composers. This collaboration of North meets South began in 2007 when these musical geniuses met as colleagues at Salisbury University and have now performed together for over a decade. Salisbury's in the house, y'all. Today, they will perform for us, Dr. John Wesley Wright and Dr. Danielle Cummings.
Hello, everyone. It's such a delight to be here. I think I've been called a lot of things, but never a musical genius. So this is just a really beautiful thing to say, and we hope we can live up to those kind words. As the introduction said, Danielle and I are colleagues at Salisbury University. We make up the voice and guitar duo North Meets South. We embrace that title with all of its implications and make a central part of our performing repertoire African American spirituals. I cannot think of any genre of music that would better reflect rejoicing and remembering than that of the American spiritual. So with that said, we have a short set for you, and we'll start out with two spirituals that we think you might be familiar with. I Got a Home, or Ain't It That Good News, and then City Called Heaven. I got a home up in that kingdom, ain't it that good news? I got a home up in that kingdom, ain't it that good news? I'm gonna lay down this world, gonna shoulder up my cross, gonna take it home to my Jesus, ain't it that good news? I got a crown up in that kingdom, ain't it that good news? I got a crown up in that kingdom, ain't it that good news? I'm gonna lay down this world, gonna shoulder up my cross, gonna take it home to my Jesus, ain't it that good news? I got a robe up in that kingdom, ain't it that good news? I got a robe up in that kingdom, ain't it that good news? I'm gonna lay down this world. I'm gonna shoulder up my cross. I'm gonna take it home to my Jesus. Ain't that good news? I got a crown up in that kingdom. Ain't that good news? I got a robe up in that kingdom. Ain't that good news? So, as you'll hear in these incredible lyrics, lyrics that got people through the day, you'll ebb and flow from rejoice to remember. And in this next piece, it was just more reflective. We definitely, err on the side of remembering. So. I am a poor pilgrim of sorrow. I'm lost in this wide world alone. No hope have I for tomorrow, but I've started to make heaven my home. Sometimes I am storm-tossed and driven, Lord. Sometimes I don't know where to roam. But I've heard of a city called heaven, and I've started to make it my home, my home. My mother has reached that pure glory. My father's still walking in sin. My brothers and sisters won't own me because I am trying to get in. Sometimes I am storm-tossed and driven, Lord. Sometimes I don't know where to roam. But I have heard of a city called heaven, and I've started to make it my home. Sometimes I am storm-tossed and driven, Lord. Sometimes I don't know where to roam. But I've heard of a city called heaven, and I've started to make it my home, my home, my home, my home. Thank you. So at this point, I'm going to, if I successfully hit that high note, then I give myself a break and turn it over and make Danielle play something. So, Danielle?
Well, it's my pleasure to be here today. My goodness, what an honor. And to be making music in front of people again for the first time in many months. It's just a pleasure to be here. So I'm going to play a piece that John introduced me to. It's an arrangement of Let Us Break Bread Together. I hope you enjoy.
makes that sound a lot easier than easier than it sounds and looks. It is easier than it sounds and
I
looks.
just want to try to make it sing. If I can try to make it sing like John.
Well, I'm just so happy that I, am introducing. We talked about educating our young folks, but it's not just our young folks. It's everybody. People, if I can introduce a spiritual that Danielle doesn't know, think about how many people we can introduce things to. So we're going to end our set with rejoicing. That's the way we started, and we're going to stray just a hair away from the spiritual, but not very far. So we hope that those of you out there in Streamland and those of you here, if you feel like at some point joining in, go right for it. People get ready, there's a train a-coming. You don't need no baggage, you just get on board. All you need is faith to hear the diesels are humming. You don't need no ticket, you just thank the Lord, yeah. People get ready for the train to Jordan, picking up passengers from coast to coast. Faith is the key, open the doors and you don't need no ticket, just get on board, yeah. Now there's no hiding place for the hopeless sinner who would hurt all mankind just to save his own. Have pity on those whose chances are thinner, 'cause there's no hiding place from the kingdom throne, yeah. People get ready for the train to Jordan. You don't need no baggage, you just get on board. All you need is faith to hear the diesels are humming. You don't need no ticket, just get on board, yeah. Are you ready? Are you ready? Yes, I'm ready, ready to thank the Lord. Thank you so much.
I'm gonna sing too. Kidding. That was wonderful. Can we give him another round of applause? Well, welcome everyone. It's so good to see you all here today, and to our friends online, welcome, welcome. My name is Chanel Compton, and I'm the executive director of the Banneker-Douglass Museum, Maryland State Museum on African American History and Culture, and I'll be doing a presentation on the power of Black museums entitled Black Museums Matter. I did not reverse the clicker part, so let's see. In real time. Can I do it? Yeah, I can. Okay. So I'll be talking, this is about a 15-minute presentation. Technically, this presentation was supposed to be close to an hour, but I shortened it, so let's just roll with it. In this presentation, I will be exploring first my love, where it came from, of Black museums. I'll be talking about the Black Museum movement, as well as the history of the Banneker-Douglass Museum and how that ties into that movement. So my love for Black museums, where did it all start? It started with my family, it really did. And this is a photo of a group shot. My sister is taking the photo, and when I told her that I will be sharing this photo to like 100 people, she was like, no, but this is the vibe. Like when we get together during the holidays, a lot of my family lives on the East Coast in different states. But when we get together, it's a really, really good time. I'm really looking forward to Thanksgiving because it's going to be amazing. So basically, my twin brother, who's from left to right, he's holding my niece, my mom is holding him, I'm holding my little cousin, my grandmother with the hat is fussing at us in the corner, and my aunt is smiling in the back, and my sister is in the middle taking the photo. And it really did start with them. I mean, I started off as an artist as a young child, and they really encouraged me as an artist. My twin brother is an artist. We instill creativity in our younger niece and our younger cousin. And I put the photo of my grandmother, her senior year at Morgan State University. Ain't she fine? She's fly. She's still fly. She's 88. She's still fly. But it really did start with her. I mean, she's the matriarch of our family, and she was one of 4 siblings to go to college. She was the first one in her family to go to college, and she went to the HBCU, Morgan State University, but she hailed from Lynchburg, Virginia. And so since a child, I learned very early the power of HBCUs. My aunt ended up going to Howard University. Growing up, I thought Howard University was the only college on the planet. But she also instilled in me to learn and to really love African American art and culture. She would take me to plays. She would buy me books on African American heritage, because she knew, and I knew, and my family knew, I wasn't really getting that in school or in the communities in which we lived. So they wanted to instill that to me early on. So shout out to my family. So how I became, like I said early on, I was really into art and reading books on children's books on African American heritage growing up. And when in high school, I really wasn't that interested in school growing up, to be honest. I didn't make the best grades until I got to high school. And I really did find my voice and my confidence through creative expression and art. And I really do credit my high school art teacher, Lynn Malley, who introduced me and other students to the work of Leonardo Drew, who went to my high school. He was from Bridgeport, Connecticut. He went to my high school. I couldn't believe it. And he was having a solo exhibition at the Metropolitan Museum of Art. Raise your hand if you've ever been to the Metropolitan Museum of Art. And most of us have. That is the largest fine arts museum in the nation. And so she took us on a field trip to the Met to see his work. And Leonardo Drew is an installation artist. He uses a lot of found object and materials. And I had never experienced or viewed African American art in an actual museum, let alone the Metropolitan Museum of Art. So it was a magical experience to me. The museum opened in 1870. I just want to say a little history about Western museums, because this puts it all in context. Western museums, if you think about museums in Europe or the United States, they're a byproduct of colonialism. So it was a space to uphold and preserve the Enlightenment, to give an excuse for colonialism and expansion, and a vehicle to preserve white supremacy. So that is another reason why Black museums are so critical and important to this nation's advancement. So this is the piece that I saw at 16 years old at the Metropolitan Museum of Art. It is number 24 in Leonardo Dru's Cotton series. He doesn't call it Cotton series, but in this series he uses a lot of cotton. Today he doesn't use cotton at all because pretty much he was typecasted to use cotton in his work. And this piece, and part of that series, explores how the cash crops of cotton and that history of industrialization and the labor and the African American experience picking cotton and basically building the global economy through slave labor. And he did all of that in this installation piece. Now, I'm 16 at the time. I didn't know what I was looking at. You know what I mean? But this piece pretty much was like, I don't know, I'm just guesstimating, like 90 feet long or plus. Like it was very expansive. And I had never seen anything like that, let alone in one of the world's largest fine arts museums. And it was really a magical moment in me, and it sparked something in me where I was like, I don't know what I'm looking at, and I don't know what this is. Really, I kind of know. I feel it. It's in my spirit. But it planted a seed in me where I wanted to be a part of this world. So I took this photo that is an extension of Leonardo's Cotton series. And so this is a stereograph of African Americans. I'm not sure if it's pre or post emancipation, but I wanted to kind of illustrate how the history of cotton, the Jim Crow South, history of cash crops was incorporated in the theme of that work. So speaking of the Metropolitan Museum of Art, so if you all are familiar with David Driscoll, he came out with this really great, and he joined the Ancestors about a year ago, but he basically popularized African American art in the United States. He did this really great documentary. HBO produced a really great documentary about his life and his work, and he actually interviewed the curator at the Metropolitan Museum of Art, I believe in 1969, when they produced Harlem on My Mind. Now, this was an exhibition in 1969 during the Black Power era, the rise of the Civil Rights era, but the curator was white, and the folks that was in charge of producing this exhibition was all white. Mind you, Harlem is in New York City. You had actual Harlem Renaissance artists alive during that time that they did not exhibit in this show, and there was a large protest of African American artists against this exhibition. So the question was, well, who's telling our story, right? The Metropolitan Museum of Art was actually had collected Romare Bearden and Jacob Lawrence's work, but they didn't put it in the exhibition. And there was a number of creatives, of course, living in Harlem at the time that wasn't included in the development of this exhibition. So what's going on? Which is why our spaces are so important. So these are a couple of books that my grandmother got me when I was younger, that I was like obsessed with, and I wore down the pages, which is Mafaro's Beautiful Daughters. That was like the African Cinderella. Raise your hand if y'all read that book. Okay, everybody has that book. I love that book. And of course, The People Who Could Fly. I was obsessed with the illustrations and the folklore. These books were like Leonardo Drew's number 24 piece. These books left an imprint on my spirit, which led me to be an artist myself. So when I graduated high school, I went to Rutgers University, Mason Gross School of the Art, where I created artwork, of course, because that's what I was majoring in. But Rutgers University is a PWI, it's a predominantly white institution, and so was my fine arts program. I was one of very few Black people in the program, and so though Emma Amos, who was a famed African-American woman artist, who actually worked with Harlem Renaissance artists as well, she was my teacher, but she was one of very few. I think she was the only one Black woman teacher artist in my department. So I knew, I was like, where's the Black art? Where's the Black history? Where's the Black culture? Because I wasn't really finding it at Rutgers University at the time, and I wasn't finding it at the museums and that I was in New Jersey at the time. So I started interning at the Studio Museum in Harlem, which was established in 1968. Studio Museum in Harlem played a critical role in the Black Museum movement, which I'll talk about later. And in graduate school, I interned at the National Museum of African Art that was established in 1964. So a little bit about the Black Museum movement. You know, being at the Studio Museum in Harlem and getting the opportunity to work and see an all-Black museum staff was revolutionary to me. Getting to know the artists in residence, revolutionary. Working at the National Museum of African Art and running their after-school programs was phenomenal. But those institutions was a part of the Black Museum movement. And Andrea Burns, who's the writer of From Storefront to Monument, she talks about the Black Museum movement as being a growth of African American museums in the 60s and 70s during the civil rights and Black Power era. So if you think about the Met, if you think about the Walters, if you think about these larger Western museums, these museums were formed for high society, right? There was always this level of elitism. African American museums were formed by civil rights activists, educators, community leaders, with the sole purpose to authentically preserve our history and culture for the next generation. So activism has always been a part of our DNA. The first African American museum was actually at Hampton University in 1868. They didn't start off with an African American art collection, but that grew in 1890 with the acquisition of I don't know if it was acquisition, but either the donation or acquisition of the Henry O. Tanner famed banjo painting. You can't talk about Black history without talking about Carter G. Woodson, okay? He is the father of Black History Month, and he popularized Black history and left a lasting imprint on African American studies at HBCU campuses that would later be the segue into African American museums. I love this photo. So this photo was taken by Stephen Shimes. He was a photojournalist, and this is of an Oakland Community Center during the Black Panther breakfast program. And I use this photo because I think it's just such a great illustration of what Black museums do. Black museum, now of course, like community programming and community work and activism and inclusivity, those are like the hot topics in a lot of mainstream museums, but Black museums have been doing it since our inception. The National Museum. So the National Museum opened what year? What year did it open? 2018, it opened in 2018. How long did it take for this museum to open? How long? 100 years. 100 years. It took 100 years for the National Museum of African American History and Culture to open. The first bill was proposed in 1918 to have an African American museum. 3 years prior to that, a bill was proposed for an African American museum monument that was proposed by African American Civil War veterans. So I showed this graph. This came from a really incredible book that I'll talk about later, and it shows the growth of African American museums through the decades. So you see right in the 60s, really in the 70s, all the way to the 1990s and 2000s, you see this growth of African American museums throughout the country. And again, spaces of dialogue, spaces to create community connections. We talked a little bit about Verda Welcome, who's the founder of this museum, and her purpose of building community around the discourse of African American history and culture. So a little bit about the Banneker-Douglass Museum. So like I said, in the 60s and 70s, that was when the Black museums movement really started, as said by Andrea Jones. And you had other museums like Hampton University, you had HBCUs that of course gave a birth to this Black museum movement. But so Banneker-Douglass Museum, we opened in 1984, but the Maryland Commission on African American History and Culture was founded by Senator Verda Freeman Welcome, who was the second African-American woman senator in the nation and the first African-American woman senator in Maryland. And she actually survived an assassination attempt during her work as a legislator. And she partnered with Professor Benjamin Quarles, who is a student of Carter G. Woodson, the father of Black History Month, and he was a professor at Morgan State University, and my grandmother was actually one of his students. So see how everything kind of comes full circle. Senator Welcome and Benjamin Quarles, they partnered together. This was a year after King's assassination, right? And they partnered, and their vision was to create a commission for Maryland that was solely dedicated to the preservation, presentation, and celebration of African American history and culture. Because in 1969, of course, there was across the nation uprisings, right? So she believed, as well as Quarles, that a way to combat systemic racism and oppression is by one of the ways, because there's a lot of ways, but one of the ways is to authentically preserve and present our history and culture. All right. So we all know this photo, and this just illustrates the time in which the commission was legislated and to form the Banneker-Douglass Museum in 1984. But the Banneker-Douglass Museum, I mean, it's a beautiful space now. And actually, right now we're in the historic wing of the Banneker-Douglass Museum that was built in 1875 by a congregation of freed and emancipated African Americans. Free-born and emancipated African Americans. And it was once Mount Moriah Church. This photo, when I saw it, I was like, oh my gosh, what year was this? But it was actually taken in the 1970s. And during that time, the congregation, though it had been here for about a year, had sold the property to the county because they had outgrown the facility. But this was a African American Cultural Center in Annapolis. And so what did the Maryland Commission on African American History and Culture do? Now, mind you, this is during the Black Museum movement. And they said to themselves, we need a museum in the state of Maryland. And that's exactly what they did. This is a photo of our permanent exhibit, Deep Roots Rising Waters. We host tens of thousands of people annually at the Banneker-Douglass Museum through our on-site exhibitions and programs and so much more. And we are striving to keep Maryland history alive, documenting yesterday and the current civil rights movement that is in resurgence today. I love this photo. So this is speaking of activists, this is Carol Green, and he's speaking with some community organizers. And this campaign, this protest is what saved the Banneker-Douglass Museum, Mount Moriah Church, that would be the Banneker-Douglass Museum, from being torn down. So the county executive at the time, this was in the 1970s, wanted to bulldoze this church. And so commissioners, community activists literally slept in sleeping bags and protested for preservation status, which when they went to court against the county, they actually won. So again, social activism is in our DNA. This is a photo shortly after we opened as the Banneker-Douglass Museum. And again, this photo really does illustrate the importance of family learning time. Most of y'all have been to the National Museum of African American History and Culture. And what is really poignant about that experience is that you see families teaching young ones about African American history, that family learning experience, which is something that we really do pride and foster here at the Banneker-Douglass Museum. This is a more modern day photo. And I want to end with this photo of the Breonna Taylor mural that we helped install in Annapolis. So when you think of Black museums across the nation, there's actually 14 in the great state of Maryland. The Banneker-Douglass Museum, we are a repository of African American history and culture, but we're also a hub for social change. And so, again, community work is already in the fabric of who we are as an institution. So last year, we partnered and supported the project of Future History Now, which is a local public art collective, and they aim to create and memorialize Breonna Taylor and bring more public awareness in the state's capital of police brutality. And the Banneker-Douglass Museum and the Maryland Commission on African American Museum supported those efforts, and we continue to support the work of local artists, local scholars, young people, community leaders to further amplify Black civil rights in the state. So a few books that you can read is The Public Historian, State of Black Museums, Histography, Volume 40. I have this book that's really beat up in my office, but if anybody wants to borrow it, you just gotta give it back. And a really great book, From Storefront to Monument, Tracing the Public History of the Black Museum Movement by Andrea Burns. And please join as a member. If you work at a Black museum, if you're interested in African American history and culture, definitely join as a member of ASALH, the Association of the Study for African American Life and History. They were founded by Carter G. Woodson, the father of Black History Month. The theme for this year is African American Family and Identity. The Association for and of course, AAAM, the Association of African American Museums. They're incredible resource as well. To learn more about the Banneker-Douglass Museum, you can go to www.bdmuseum.maryland.gov. You can follow us on Instagram and social media. If you want to contact me and talk more about community programs or partnerships, you can email me at chanel.compton@maryland.gov. And this presentation is in honor of my grandfather in memory of Augustus Turner. Love you, Granddad. I know you're looking down on me every day. Thank you.
Tonight, we've come together to rejoice and to remember. Most of us have lost someone within the last 19 months. So tonight, we will light candles to remind us that though they are gone from us physically here on earth, their light continues to shine. First, we will light a candle to remember all of those that we have lost to the coronavirus. One of the most difficult things about this virus was that so many left us without presenting the chance for us to say goodbye. Next, we light a candle to remember all of those who have been lost because of violence all across our nation. City, rural, and even by those who are sworn to serve and protect us. We remember them. Next, we light the third candle to remember all of those who were lost, our proud men and women in uniform who were willing to sacrifice their lives in defense of this country, many of whom gave their lives in foreign lands. We light the fourth candle to remember all of those who have lost us serving here at home, police officers, firefighters, paramedics, emergency medical technicians, all of those that we consider frontline workers. Those educators who serve diligently in our classrooms, preparing the next generation. Those who ensure that we have fresh fruit and vegetables on our table. Those in the food service profession, grocery stores, workers, restaurateurs. Those in the transportation industry that bring us back and forth. Those people who we often take for granted. And so many of them gave their lives so that our lives could continue with some sense of normalcy. Fifth, we remember the children. So many children we lost before they had the opportunity to experience life. The sixth candle, we remember all family, friends, personal losses, no matter the cause. We remember them. Finally, the seventh candle. We light the candle tonight of hope. For with everything that we've gone through in the last 19 months, we are still here. And for those of you who have lost loved ones, know that they are still here with you if you let their light continue to shine in your heart. If you are here, you have breath in your body, then there is hope for tomorrow. One of the things that the ancestors have laid out for us is that no matter what we face, we have it within us to press on. So tonight, we rejoice and we remember, but more importantly, we have a hope that will not be extinguished going into tomorrow. We rejoice.
Can you hear me now? Good. It's been a long day, and I'm more than 70 and something, like some friend of mine, Deborah. Let me start again. Good evening. My name is Commissioner Janice Curtis Green from Baltimore County, and I hope that you had as much fun tonight as I have. I hope you have been inspired as I have. As we have rejoiced, we have seen beautiful dance, we have heard the music of one of my favorite tenors, and we've heard the guitar music flow from the fingers of a professional guitarist. And I think that's something that many of us have not heard. And I thank you for introducing us to. We have remembered the ancestors by pouring libation. We remembered those whose land this originally was. And we have rejoiced and we have remembered those who we have lost. But most importantly, we have been given a message of hope. I want to thank everyone who helped make this program responsible. I want to thank the City of Annapolis, the Banneker-Douglass Museum Foundation Incorporated, the Maryland Commission on African American History and Culture, the Governor's Coordinating Offices, and the Governor's Offices of Community Initiatives. I want to thank the Banneker-Douglass staff. I want to thank those of you who are out there in viewing land who took time on this football evening to rejoice and remember with us. I want to thank the members of the Banneker-Douglass Museum Committee. Most of all, I want to thank all of those who performed tonight and gave their time, those who have come to the museum to visit. I want to thank Event Stream Team, who made this live stream possible, and their entire crew who have worked tirelessly since 12 this afternoon. I thank especially Chanel Compton, the executive director of the Banneker-Douglass Museum, and her words to remind us that Black museums are a part of Black history and a part of our story. And until the lion tells the tale, the hunter will always be the hero. So Black museums tell our story, our way, with the truth. Now, I know some of you here have candles on your seats, and the reminder was that we all have a light within ourselves. So if you have a candle or light, I wish you'd light it right now. We have the last event in our symposium coming up on Wednesday night, the 13th, October the 13th. It is an educational webinar from 3 dynamic Black women who will give us tips on rising above this COVID pandemic that we've been through for the last 19 months. To help us with our financial competency. Many of us have lost jobs and investments and trying to figure out a way. But like our ancestors, we always found a way to make a way out of no way. We have someone who will speak to us about our mental and physical health, which is so important. There's been such a spotlight, especially now, on the mental health. And then we have an educator who will help us, give us tips on how we can re-energize that learning spirit that all children have that has gone dormant when they could not be in school and had to undergo online learning without social interaction. So Commissioner McLeod, who is my partner in hope, I won't say my partner in crime, but my partner in hope. And I think we have a tenor here, and we have Mama Deborah, the Afropella griot. We want everybody to join us. I want you folks out there in Streamland, and you folks right here to join us in singing this little light of mine as we close out this symposium. So Dr. Mama Deborah, and those who didn't know who these people were that were pouring libation. It's Dr. David Fakunle, and his mama, Dr. Mama Deborah Fakunle. They are members of the Griot Circle of Maryland and the National Association of Black Storytellers, and they have co-founded Discover Me, Recover Me, that uses the African oral tradition of storytelling to help people who are going through trauma. So they ain't just pretty faces who can drum and sing, y'all. Are we ready? I'm going to step back and let those people who can sing, because y'all don't want me to sing. Come on. I'm a John Wesley Wright groupie, and Dr. Mama's always been my good buddy. So how are we going to start? Where's David? He can't start. You go.
Okay, okay, we can.
All right, 1, 2, 3.
This little light of mine, I'm gonna let it shine.
Oh, glory, this little light of mine, I'm gonna let it shine. This little light of mine, I'm gonna let it shine, let it shine, let it shine, let it shine. Everywhere I go, right? Right. Everywhere I go, I'm gonna let it shine. Oh, everywhere I go, I'm gonna let it shine. Everywhere I go, come on. I'm gonna let it shine, let it shine, let it shine, let it shine. And who gave you this light? Who gave it to you? Jesus gave it to me. Now I'm gonna let it shine. I'll let it shine. Jesus gave it to me. My Jesus, I'm gonna let it shine. Jesus gave it to me. I'm gonna let it shine, let it shine, let it shine, let it shine. Let your light shine so others can benefit from your glory, your light, your heat, your warmth, and your love. Thank you, and don't forget to visit the Banneker-Douglass website, the Banneker-Douglass Museum website, so that you can do 2 things. Register for the educational webinar coming up this Wednesday, and donate so we can keep on letting our light shine. Thank you so much. Have a good evening.
Have a good evening, everybody.
Oh.